hello and welcome to the 18th in a series of masterclasses. This one entitled Managing Partnerships by Winging It is officially over. Today, Gary Morris, founder of Successful Channels, will be joined by Jay McBain, the foremost authority on partnership ecosystems and the chief analyst at Channels Partnerships and Ecosystems at Analyst, who will share how effectively and efficiently you can conduct your partner ecosystem. Just a quick note before Gary begins. The masterclass will run 45 minutes, with another 10 to 15 minutes for questions and answers. We encourage questions. Please use the Q&A function on your Zoom link to record your questions. And one more thing, at the end of the session, you will be asked and invited to complete a survey. For those of you who do, we will send a complete set of the slide deck. So without any further ado, here's Gary Morris to kick off our session.
Thanks, Bob. We're really excited. As you can see, we had a lot of fun with this theme. Managing partners by winging it is officially over. We've made that declaration. The theme is that the disconnected tools for partner sales management is a disaster waiting to happen. That partner sales management is just too complicated to continue to wing it anymore. And we must bring these processes together in a unified workflow to help bring partnership selling to the next level. We are thrilled to have the leading channel ecosystem luminary with us today, Jay McBain. I'm sure there isn't anyone on this call who doesn't know Jay. Jay's going to talk about two key themes: this new platform selling model and what partners expect from us, and number two, the 7 key moments of the partner sales journey. Okay, so why have we been winging partnership selling for so long? Why desktop tools for selling? It's because it's easy. Mocking up and hacking up an Excel, PowerPoint, and Word template is quick and dirty solution. But it's inconsistent focus on a professional business plans and QBRs. When we're managing our partners, we're planning our work and are working our plan. And it's very difficult to manage all aspects of partnership sales management using desktop tools or disconnected applications. The other thing I think we all realize is that IT support is lacking for the partner sales team. And I say it was easy, but also because it's hard, because partner selling includes business plans and end customer plans, task management, assign, remind, and notification of tasks, and the execution of consistent MBRs and QBRs, one of the biggest challenges for partner selling. So in order to reach partner selling full potential, it's time to let these broken processes go. We need a unified process for managing the partner sales cultivation process, starting with defining your partner needs, setting targets, building joint action plans, joint end customer plans, creating fund and incentive requests, managing and assigning tasks, consistently executing MBRs and QBRs, and adjusting and refining it as you go. This is the plan your work and work your plan process. And as you can tell, it's just there's too many moving parts to manage a series of disconnected business processes today. So this was a lot of fun, is that the evolution of partner selling. First, what does good look like? Wouldn't it be great if I set joint targets and those targets were accepted and partners are committed to achieving those targets? And then I have a parallel partner capabilities enablement business process. Those are your representatives in the marketplace. You need to enable them to be effective representatives of your brand. Building planned partnerships with shared goals and partner and end customer action plans and MDF plans, and consistently reviewed. It's one thing to have a plan or plan your work, but you got to work your plan. You've got to review, how are we doing with our targets? How are we doing with our plans? The number one challenge that we hear from VPs of channel sales is We just can't get MBRs and QBRs done. And as a result, there's huge missing partner-led revenue. So where have we been? We've been running, multi-billion-dollar channels off of spreadsheets and desktop tools. Over the past 5 or so years, we've been introducing new but disconnected tools. And now there's an opportunity to have a unified partner sales cultivation process to turn your partner sales managers into true professionals. So this is our first poll. We want to get your involvement in the process. What we'd like to do, this is a multiple choice question. What are your partnership selling challenges for 2025? Please activate the poll and select all that apply.
All right, let's take a look at the poll.
Okay, so the partnership results, well, certainly improving the productivity of partner selling, that makes a lot of sense. And then what we hear almost universally is improving partner and customer account planning. That's and customer account planning. That's clearly always the number one priority. But I like to see that across the board, all of these attributes are important. Enablement, onboarding, and customer account planning, business planning, and QBRs. So I think this is, I think a really encouraging sign. Okay. Okay. So I want to introduce the person that everybody knows in this call, Jay McBain, the chief analyst at Canalysis. He's going to talk about the two most critical innovations that are happening in 2025, which is, partnership selling blueprint and the introduction of a platform selling. And then I'm going to come back and talk about this automation of the sales cultivation process and a one-click QBR. Jay, take it from here.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Gary. Really pleased to be here. And I had a little bit of fun with your graphic because the majority buyer in the tech industry now, the $5.4 trillion that businesses and governments will spend on hardware, software, and services, the majority buyer is now a millennial, born after 1982. And one of the fun facts about millennials is that 75% of them don't want to talk to a human. So we're stepping into the next phase of compute, which is generative AI leading into agentic AI. So the evolution of the selling process may be less human or a combination of human and digital more than ever before. So there's another evolutionary step that we talk to. And when we talk about these evolutions, I step back into, the Fortune 500, for example, the biggest, most loved companies in the world. Did you know that 52% of them from 20 years ago no longer exist? If you go on every 20-year cycle of the brands that we love and the leaders in the market and the most beloved companies that we talk about, if you look forward 20 years from today, 50% of the companies we know and love today won't exist. That's the cycle. And if you don't happen to be in the Fortune 500 and you don't have a big bank account to acquire your way out of problems, 71% of tech companies don't even make it 10 years. So you start to look at our industry and you look at the moves that have happened, and wherever you joined the tech industry, whatever decade that you joined, it is shaping up to be that same cycle. Client server ran about 20 years, from August the 12th, 1981, that first PC with Microsoft DOS version 1, in through about 1999 when Salesforce.com got the start, and then a number of years later, AWS. But we moved through these 20-year cycles. And in March of 2023, ChatGPT, a consumer trend, triggered the next 20 years. We know that AI has been around forever. When I joined IBM 30 years ago, we were just getting ready to play chess against Garry Kasparov. It was the first time a computer ever beat a grandmaster at chess. Since that game in 1996, no grandmaster has ever beat a computer since. It was 15 years later, the first generative AI display, which was a computer, Watson, beating Jeopardy. Ken Jennings and all the champions of Jeopardy. It wasn't even close. But that was in 2011, and that was a generative AI problem. Reading the internet cover to cover, and then coming back and being able to frame it in the form of a question within milliseconds. But that was, many, many years, 14 years ago. But now that we're in this next 20-year cycle, we kind of frame up where we go. Do we manage partners, the way we did in the client server era? Very linear, direct selling models with using resellers at the point of sale. The cloud introduced 7 partners surrounding the customer in all stages of the journey. It introduced the 7-layer stack that the customer would buy, 14 layers of complexity, making it very difficult. And in the cloud era, only about 20% of it was resold. So it wasn't as linear as ever before. It was more of a surround model. And now we're hearing about AI. It is all about ecosystem. 6.5 trillion. By the way, the world economy last year was 105. 6 trillion represents 6% of world GDP. But it's not Microsoft's TAM. It is an ecosystem TAM. It's the integrations, it's the alliances, it's the services partnerships and the channel partnerships that make up these numbers. Not to be outdone, OpenAI talks about a $7 trillion build out, again, of this ecosystem. And all the news we hear every day is all the stack of different companies, hardware, software, services companies that make up these numbers. And out of the $7 trillion, we already have $2.5 trillion committed and raised. So this next cycle is here, and you can't wing it in the cloud era. You definitely cannot wing it in this level of complexity that is coming, especially digital. So again, these numbers are so large, they're bigger than our entire industry is today. This year, businesses and governments will spend 5.4 trillion, less than those AI numbers. And that took 50 years to build. And all of the channel partnerships and services and alliances and other partnerships that we built over time have now come to the point where the surround strategy, going to market and surrounding the customer through every moment of their journey, impacts every one of these slices. So we know that our industry is 70% through the channel. So that same resell motion is the majority. But this is the part we're talking about today. We're now measuring 96% of every dollar of that 5.4 trillion is partner assisted. In a medium to mid-market to larger deal, it is 7 partners on average today that are assisting that journey. They're consulting, they're designing, they're architecting, they're co-selling, they're co-marketing, they're implementing, they're integrating, they're managing, they're building, co-developing, co-innovating. This is the point that you can't wing. Maybe there's a reseller channel, like if you sell cars through dealerships or sell gasoline through gas stations or pharmaceuticals through pharmacies, that is somewhat of a linear task that you can wing on a spreadsheet. When you're surrounding a customer and try to make sense of the millions of companies and tens of millions of people that are competing for those 7 spots, you're not running a spreadsheet with tens of millions of lines. You're not connecting the dots between 7 partners and the average 7-layer stack. So that's now 14 things going on. And by the way, there isn't a single buyer. Today in enterprise, the average buying committee now has 13 individuals inside the company. So now I've got 7 layers plus 7 people externally plus 13. Now there's 27 layers of complexity in a single deal. And so as a salesperson, you're less of a salesperson turning into a territory manager. You're now an orchestrator of so many different things. So these business arrangements that we make, these commitments that we make, the collaboration that we do is becoming that much more complex. The moving parts are to the point of permutations and combinations beyond what any of the fanciest pivot tables or VLOOKUPs could do. So this era that we're in of partnering, where the majority of salespeople, the majority of marketing people, upwards of 89%, 84% of those people are working with partners every day. We're working with our internal teams more than ever before. We used to be that department over on the side that no one understood what we did, and we were not respected at maybe the level we should have. Well, we're integral to every marketing, sales, CX, and product conversation going on. So we're kind of at this moment where 89% of our salespeople are asking us to dig in with them to go and close business every day. Of the 11% who aren't using partners every day, 58% plan to within 12 months. This is Salesforce talking. This isn't channel research. This is Salesforce talking to 5,500 of the best CROs in the world. And the interesting thing about sales is that the majority of salespeople in 2024 missed their numbers. It was a very tough year. And by the way, 2025 is shaping up to be a tough year as well for a bunch of reasons outside of our control. But for those people who did make their numbers last year, 84% of them point to partners as the reason why. You know, HubSpot did a piece of research on marketing. It's 84% of marketers are using partners every day. So the level of complexity internally, externally, and surrounding our customers has grown exponentially for all of us. And that's just in the physical sense. That's people working with people. In a buyer who 75% want to avoid people, the digital impacts of this are much higher. So now the majority buyer, a millennial born after 1982, different psychology, different behavior, different journey that they're on. Suffice it to say, 75% of them don't want to talk to a person. They're digital first or digital only in the 28 moments before they make the purchase. Very subscription consumption friendly, but a big criteria change. You know, while baby boomers and Gen X thought service support levels are important, your price is important, your brand reputation is important, well, integrations jump from number 8 to number 1. They'll buy a product 80% as good as the competitive product if it works better in their environment. They also don't like to buy one company. When I joined IBM, for example, out of college, you couldn't get fired for buying IBM. Well, today it's the opposite. They're buying best of breed. All 7 layers are best of breed, and they expect partners and others to integrate all this to work together. And this is why services are growing faster than hardware and software now in our industry, is because of this opportunity. So 7 layers, 7 partners, very digital marketplace friendly, different buying cycle, and it's leading to this new platform economy. So the best companies, when I go back and say that, 20 years, 50% of the Fortune 500 won't exist, or in 10 years, 71% of tech companies won't exist, it's right here. The companies today that recognize that platforms is synonymous with partnerships. It's not a fancy UI that sits on top of your disparate products. It's not a fancy pricing model or bundling model. It's a partnership model. You need the tech integrations on the upper right to serve your new buyer. You need the channel partnerships on the bottom, because I mentioned 70% of our industry is sold that way. If you're in cybersecurity, it's 91.6%. But you also need the other 6 people surrounding the customer. The people doing the consulting, the design, the implementations, the integrations, the managed services. Those are the 7 surrounding services partners. I need the alliances on the left. You got to play friendly with the hyperscalers and their big platforms and ecosystems. You got to play friendly with the big SaaS platforms. You got to play friendly with the big cyber platforms. This platform economy, you got to play really well with alliances. And then all the motions. You may not be in a reselling motion with that partner. You're more likely to be in a co-selling, co-marketing, co-innovation, co-development, and then co-keeping forever, every 30 days forever. So when I add all this together and add the millions and then billions and then trillions of permutations, this is the quantification of why you can't wing it anymore. If you think you're going to run this on desktop office productivity tools, if you think your email tool plus your spreadsheet is going to be able to tape together a platform, you might be working in one of the companies that aren't going to make it. For your own career, those of us in channel spend 3.1 years now on average in each job, maybe with each company. But over the course of 30 to 40 years in your career, you have to be forward-looking and you have to be applying these principles of automation, processes, workflows, business logic at a level of automation that's better than your competitors and maybe better than the people you're competing with from a career perspective as you're progressing. So I want to move to the second poll, talk about platform maturity. So which platform partnership types does your company support with people, programs, underlying technology? Love, Bob, if you could bring up that poll.
Let's display the results.
All right. So I said 70.1% of our industry is channel partnerships. We got 82. So we got a really nice demographic here.
Yeah.
Understanding the importance of tech integrations at 61, that's higher than I expected. But obviously we can't go to market without the other 6 layers of the stack. Looking at the strategic alliances, obviously really important, living in other people's ecosystems. Love the mix here. Love the blend of the larger numbers. We see the opportunities kind of across the board here in terms of partnerships. And 2% of people out there have nothing. So a great clean sheet to start with. But it doesn't matter which of the 27 industries you're in. You can't succeed going forward without maturity. And we've got lots of room to grow here across all these different parts of the platform. So thank you for that. And we'll kind of move on here and finish off. Like if I talk about digital marketplaces for a second, what's interesting is not only the 82% growth that we're seeing every year, based on this digital first, digital only buyer, but inside of that, we're seeing 50% of all those digital marketplace deals funding partner activities by 2027. Those are private offers, multi-partner offers, distributor sellers of record. If 96% of our industry is partner assisted, you'd expect the green bar at some point in the future to be 96% of the bar. And these numbers are rising so large that a company like AWS became a top 10 distributor in only a couple of years, which took the rest of the industry 44 years to do. But if you look at the future of where we're going, talk about this complexity again. We know at traditional product billing, you could probably wing it back in the product billing days, whether it's in telco or tech. In subscription, it got much harder because you had to go and renew that customer every 30 days forever and work with the people surrounding them in non-transactional roles. In consumption, it got a bit harder in the hyperscalers to do that. No one's successful today winging it in those markets. Well, guess what? The next market is $1 per thing. Generative AI, now agentic AI, is going to show up as per outcome, per resolution, per photo retouch. This is all going to be digital utility based with so many moving parts, 13 people in the buying committee, 7 external people, and 7 layers. If you think you're going to manage 27 layers for $1 in revenue, it's not going to happen. This is the point of moving and getting much more integrated. We see the shifts in the economics. We all used to build, and we continue to build programs that look like this. We check 100 boxes. It's very personal and human based in terms of deal registrations and getting the QBRs set up and things like that. But we've got to reorient around the customer. There's 28 moments in green before they make the purchase, the 7-layer stack and around procurement, whichever way they procure. Indirect, marketplaces, direct, it doesn't matter. Now, every 30 days forever, the managed services, the implementations, the integration, hundreds upon hundreds of services in a multiplier effect. And for the first time in 45 years, partners are now asking to be recognized, measured outside of the transaction. Measure me for consulting, measure me for design, measure me for implementations, measure me for managed services. First time ever that they've not asked for more leads from a vendor. They want this. This comes back to the QBR process. It comes back to business planning. What used to be a nice to have is now a need to have. I don't need to ask you how much you're going to sell next week or the week after. I need to do a full strategic plan on where in that customer journey you are. The consulting that over half of my partners are doing, design work, a third of them look like SIs, 2/3 of them look like MSPs. Over almost half of them now, 44% are developing software. The average partner checks 3.2 boxes. Your QBR isn't just a revenue review or a goal review. It is how do we get you to making $2 to $3 or $4 for every dollar we make around that customer journey, delighting the customer and getting us both a customer for life. This process is not, you can't wing this. You can't just send out your channel account managers with the standard form. This is more complex. This is for the sake of all companies. And the final thing I'll say is we're at another tipping point right now. We're seeing Mark Zuckerberg in front of Congress today. We're seeing Google lose another antitrust suit this week. They got another big fine out of the EU. we're done being the products on the internet. But what does this mean to us? This is a consumer trend. But in the 28 moments before a sale, guess what? You can't go and buy the data from Google or Meta anymore. Third-party data is going away. The only way you're going to be able to sell and market in the future is through partnerships. You got to partner with the people who wrote the ebook, who recorded the podcast, who ran the event, who did the consulting, the design, who did the configuration, price quote. All 28 moments are measurable. And if we're not doing that, we're going to lose to our competitors. We'll be one of the 50 or 70% of companies who don't make it because our competitors were smart enough to go and make those partnerships. And these are people that probably aren't collecting the money. These aren't the resell types. These are people that are more like alliances, affinity, affiliates, advocates, ambassadors, referrals. They could be super connectors. They could be influencers in the consumer space. But the fact of the matter is, we need to be surrounding the customer at every moment. And we need plans with all these companies as well. So this isn't just having a plan with who's selling stuff. It's everybody. And this is where the weight of the tech stack is going. Who's going to be the connective tissue between all the tools we need to measure all the moments before, during, and after the transaction? How do we plan both physically with the larger partners and digitally with the, more broader partners? How do we surround the customer, the 7 partners around every one of our deals? And then how do we make sure that we're checking the 3.2 boxes with them and that we're working together in a collaborative communicative space? This is where successful channels comes in. It, again, moves from this nice to have. This is something that everyone wanted, to put in place for their biggest partners, to now a need to have across your entire ecosystem. It's the glue that puts all of these islands together and puts all these moments together. I'm going to end with the third poll, which is visibility across the 28 moments. And I wanted to ask, what type of partner-led customer moments can you measure today, reliably, repeatably? So in that co-selling, the co-marketing, the consulting, design, configuration, of all these moments, Bob, if you could bring up the poll. All right. So good mix here. Love to see co-selling almost at 50%. That seems to be the place that most partnering is happening, and the point where between co-marketing and co-selling, the biggest win of seeing deals early and often. Also see later in the deal, the CPQ that comes right before the resell or right before the marketplace. That's another key one. At 34, we've got a lot of room to grow. But you see these other, I'm going to leave you with a stat that when we ask partners who they think where the money should be spent in programs and where they think the most important moment is, whether you win or lose a deal, is in consulting. So the thing that ranked last here is actually what the majority of partners in the world, millions of people, think that vendors should be spending the most money on. We're not buying a pack of gum. People don't make a decision at the point of sale when they're at the cash register. If you're in the 7-layer stack, you're built into the stack at the consulting design level. And that's where partners are telling vendors, screaming at vendors, that that's where they should be spending their money. And look, 83% of us are not measuring that part. This is where successful channels can come in and connect those dots and connect these strategic plans at the account level and making sure that we can assign points in that very important part. So perfect segue, Gary, back to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Jay. Boy, every time I hear you speak, Jay, I learn something new. The fact that over 60% of technology is going to be purchased through these hyperscalers. Once, I had heard that in an earlier review, we actually had got ourselves listed on AWS. It was a big process, but we already have over 20% of our sales transacting through our hyperscalers. I think the other thing, sorry, Jay, go ahead.
I was just saying, that's amazing.
Yeah, and so the other big theme takeaway from what I heard from Jay is complexity, complexity, complexity. We just can't be ad hoc in the way we manage our partnerships. Partnerships, we're in the right place, but we have to be more systematic. We can't do opportunistic, ad hoc, incidental deals. We have to have a unified, systematic sales cultivation process that's hyper integrated and very closely coordinated with partnerships. It's time to let go of these disconnected partner sales management tools. Set them free. Partnerships need us to. They're individually, they're great tools, but a unified solution is what's necessary to take us to the promised land. So what do your partners want? What do they want from partner sales managers? How do I package all of this complexity into a unified business process? They're looking for joint targets, backwards looking at bookings, pipeline accounts, target accounts, year over year, win rate, cycle time. They're looking for joint plans with things like how do we grow new logos, vertical campaigns, cross-sell, upsell. They're looking for joint end customer account plans, identifying overlap accounts, like with systems like Crossbeam. But then once we identify the overlap accounts, now let's build joint account plans to push those deals to close. Joint demand, to the ability to have a joint value proposition, joint campaigns, joint task ownership, tasks that are assigned. This is the #1 reason why partner sales management fails, because tasks get buried in the plan and they never get executed. They need to be brought out and delivered on a silver platter with automated task assign, notify, remind, and personal dashboards. And finally, the single biggest thorn in the side of every VP of channel sales, QBRs. Just can't get them done. They're looking for a one-click QBR with status across performance, across business, across end customer, all set and ready to go. Good news, we have a solution for that. Okay, so I love when Jay talked about platform selling, and he took the 5 dimensions of the 2025 partnership platform. What I want to try to do here is like, well, how do we bring that down into tomorrow afternoon? I'm going to have a business review with my partner. What are the key metrics for marketing? Leads, opportunities, deals. What are my business action? I have a collaborative business demand gen or collaborative content, and I'm doing campaign enable. But in services, we're developing metrics for complementary services revenue. I'm actually creating a metric and measures of partner services. What we keep hearing over and over again is from partners saying, hey, you guys know what type of services look like. Prototype services for us. Help us do partner services design, services marketing, services staffing, and pricing models, so we can enhance our services business model. The same transfers to channel partnerships, is to build both partner-led and brand-led and joint go-to-market plans and QBRs. In terms of strategic alliances, they're looking for the number of co-sell solutions. Now, not every single partnership is going to develop a collaborative, technology solution, but they certainly can do co-sell. And this is why partner selling is so complex. It's not just having your product, is they're looking for a 1 + 1 = 5, a combined solution that they can market directly and or through hyperscalers. And finally, we need to bring our technical teams together and build technical integrations to fulfill the vision of platform selling. How do you bring all this together? Joint business plans, joint end customer account plans, joint enablement plans, task assign, notify, and unified QBRs. So here is a end-to-end process that, I always think in terms of partnership selling, it's a process. You define the partner needs, you set targets, you build business plans, you do marketing plans, you do enablement plans, you do end customer plans, and then you work your plan. Partners accept the plans, and then you work your plan with MBRs and QBRs. So, we actually have a workflow, and it's an incentive and MDF integration solution with 360 Insights as one of the vendors out there that can, inside of your business plan, you can request funds and incentives as a part of a unified workflow, as a part of a seamless joint business plan and QBR, one-click QBR system.
Well, that's a great point, because guess who is having an event for the next 2 days is 360. And in their event, they're talking about this exact same thing. So we're eating our own cooking here when we're talking about technology integrations. You talked about Crossbeam, you've talked about 360. This point is that successful channels doesn't sit on its own either. You're part of that fabric, that connective tissue among hundreds of channel tech data sources and workflows that all come back to those joint plans, those customer plans, and that enablement. So this is where the industry comes together as well. Wherever you're dialing in, you're going to hear it from one side or the other, how we all come together, to solve these really big problems.
Exactly. And I'm sorry this is an eye chart, but this gives you an example of what an integrated business plan, fund request, and QBR workflow looks like. Is just the ability to have a unified workflow of your business plans with a full range of ecosystem players, marketing, MDF, incentives, rebates, discounts, and other ecosystem solutions, all unified in a one unified business planning process. Marketplaces are really transforming the way partnerships are managed, and us as ecosystem vendors, we're not going to market by ourselves anymore. We're becoming a part of a enabled ecosystem, so that channel sales can actually be executed much more efficiently and much more effectively. The interesting thing Jay mentioned is that this 360 Insights event is happening at the same time. Jay is actually presenting right now on the 360 Insights webinar, and I'm presenting on their webinar tomorrow. So it's marketplaces and ecosystems are really changing the way partnership selling will be done going forward.
Yeah, so I just mentioned that for the first time in 44 years, the number one thing that partners want from you is to be recognized, measured, and incentivized outside of the transaction. How would you set up a point system? How would you set up something that your CFO could trust to spread money into this space? You're looking at it right here. Two of the most trusted brands in the channel tech stack, bringing it together where the data would be reliable to pay against. It would be repeatable. And most importantly, it would be scalable globally. And now you're measuring and paying for non-transactional behaviors and literally coming back to exactly what partners are now asking for.
And then bringing it all together, thank you, Jay, is what we have a new system called our one-click QBRs. Our VP of channel sales clients have asked for this over and over again. It isn't just a backwards looking Power BI dashboard. It's an integrated end-to-end plan your work and work your plan system. The idea is that you have your Salesforce.com integrated dashboards. You have your business action plan. You have your tasks. You have your end customer account plans. You have your fund request and approval workflow. You have marketing. You have incentives. You have MDF. You have deals, all in one unified, one-click QBR, PowerPoint, or PDF. The idea here is that. And we're going to be able to answer questions in just a couple of slides. Please put them in the Q&A section. So the idea here is that now, instead of pulling from all these disconnected systems, I have one unified business plan and one-click QBR to focus more time on building partnership relationships, backwards looking and forward looking.
So let me get this straight. You spent 42 minutes saying that you can get rid of PowerPoint and PDFs and Adobe, and then you spend your time saying, we're going to put it all back there once we're done.
Well, yes, that's exactly. So what I'm saying is that delivering your comprehensive business plan, action plan, enablement plan, end customer plan, and QBR with one click. That just happens to be delivered in the friendly export version, but also it's available online. So last poll today, we got one more poll, and then we're going to switch to the Q&A. What of the following are you pursuing for your partner ecosystem strategy? Let's activate the poll and please select all that apply. That's great, Bob. Thank you.
Wow.
You know
Wow.
what? We are in the ecosystem business, everyone at various stages, but this is really encouraging to see complementary technologies with your business, integrations, joint solutions on marketplaces. Boy, at the Catalyst conference last year in Chicago, the presenters across the board presented that 65% of technology will be acquired through the three hyperscalers, AWS, Google, and Microsoft Azure. And it's amazing how that is transforming the role of these hyperscalers and partner integration into these hyperscale marketplaces. And now with the emergence of marketplaces like 360 Insights and others, it is really transforming. If we are not actively doing this, we are behind, okay? So I really like, and then providing the services models, as Jay said, partners' primary business is services, and they count on us, they depend on us to help them enhance their services models. Look at partner service prototyping, including services design, staffing models, pricing models to help them build their business wrapped around our brand. All right, so let's end the poll. Okay. So bringing it all together in a unified partner sales cultivation process. You know, it kind of did a dream ranking of what the QBR attributes are. And, you know, easy to complete, automated data integration. So as you're designing your partnership sales cultivation process, you want to have all of these 11 attributes included, because this is what your partners are looking for. And frankly, your CAMs, PAMs, PSMs, partner sales managers don't have time to put all this together. You owe it to your channel. You owe it to your partners. You owe it to your channel sales managers to build a channel sales process that fulfills these your requirements. This is your RFP for your new partner sales and QBR process. Okay. Listen, that was a lot of fun. I mean, I feel so fortunate that we had, you know, Jay McBain on this call. Now it's time for audience questions. Bob,
Well,
can
we
you
do have some. We do have some, and by the way, there's still time for you to do more questions through the Q&A link. The first question comes from someone who said, "Would this process/solution play in the TSD space with supplier channel managers working with trusted advisors and agents?" You want to pick that up, Gary?
Yeah, I can.
Okay,
I can take a
Go ahead,
first
Jay.
one.
Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, we've actually been working with the TSDs, and these are companies like Telarus, AppDirect, Intelisys, Avant, Sandler, etc. And the telco market that they serve is about a quarter of that $5.4 trillion. So absolutely. So remember, an agent has always been kind of a selling agent on commission, but the slide that I showed, that over half of them are now consulting. They're doing design work, they're doing implementations, they're doing 3.2 things. We have to re-engage this market with the TSD's help to go and see the entire life cycle and to do the things that Gary was mentioning, measuring non-transactional activities that they've always been doing. It's just we focused on such a resale, not a commission-based agent model as a seller as opposed to all these other things. So I think it's one of the biggest opportunities in telco. I do want to provide one clarification. Gary mentioned a couple times, 60 or 65% of future sales and things. I want to put that in perspective. We're talking there about kind of SaaS and agentic AI, a small slice of the market. Today, marketplaces will be about 50 to 60 billion this year, and that represents 1% of the tech and telco industry. TSDs, combined are selling tens of billions of dollars, into the telco market. So we don't want to start saying that all telco equipment, UCaaS, CCaaS, and then PCs, servers, infrastructure, all the other components are going to be sold through marketplaces. It's just the fastest growing and it's most forward facing. And just want to make sure that we step back a little bit, that the major distribution, major TSDs, major other routes to market, like the biggest resellers in the world and other things, will continue to be 70% of this industry's sales.
Okay, by the way,
Bob, just one comment. Bob, one comment on that. 5 to 7 years ago, you go to the Channel Partners Conference, you ask TSC salespeople, what are you doing? They're saying at 8 o'clock until 5 o'clock, I am doing price quotes all day long. It's a race to the bottom. Today, you go to the Channel Partner Conference, and where the TSDs are very well represented, and I would say at least 50% of them are saying we are providing value-added services like other technology channels. So the transformation is happening both in tech partners, but also with TSD agents. We're seeing it.
okay,
Sorry, Bob.
Stefan, I know you raised your hand. If you could put your question in the Q&A chat, that would be great. We have a question from someone who says, what role do you see for distribution in this scenario?
Yeah, I think I preempted that question with my comment before.
Yeah.
Distribution, there's 500 distributors around the world, the largest at 50 and $60 billion size. When you're orchestrating a deal, some of the biggest growth in digital marketplaces, by the way, is distribution. I'll take you back 2 weeks. CrowdStrike put out a press release that they did $1 billion on AWS in one single calendar year. A week later, Splunk put out a press release as well. So we're starting to get those $1 billion a year players. But inside the press release, there's a really interesting set of numbers. CrowdStrike grew that marketplace business by almost 100%. It almost doubled year on year. But inside of that growth, the DSOR, which is the distributor growth attached to it, went up 3,548%. So the players like TD SYNNEX and Ingram and Arrow and Also and Westcon and all the way down the list around the world, D&H and Exclusive, they're playing more and more and more. They're growing by quadruple digits while the marketplace revenue is growing by triple digits. And we're seeing that everywhere. This 50% of all deals are funded, growing to 96%. There is an uplift here. The distributors are massive, massive companies. They're bigger than Nike and Coca-Cola and McDonald's and Starbucks. They are reforming their business. Whether they collect the money or not, they're going to be playing in this multiplier, and they're going to be a key part of orchestrating a deal. And so your QBRs extend to distribution and everyone else that adds value to the client. And that's why this complexity, you can't wing it. There's so many moving parts that you've got to have this all in an automated, well-controlled, well-governed, set of processes.
Okay, so we have, by the way, one of the comments was that I wouldn't limit TSDs to telco. And I think obviously we're not limiting it to telco.
They're one of the fastest growing routes for cybersecurity, for AI. It's well beyond telco at this point.
Well beyond telco. Based on experience, what C-level role is best to deliver partner first culture?
Gary?
I mean, we're finding that CRO, certainly the CRO, and in many organizations, both the head of sales, direct sales, and partner sales is reporting to the CRO. Jay had cited a study done by Salesforce last year that said that 96% of deals are influenced by channels. So, if you look kind of forward, the direct selling and partner selling, those lines are continuing to blur. And, if I am a direct sales organization not coordinating my efforts with my partners, I'm leaving lots of money on the table. I think the CRO is the key role, that brings partnering culture to direct selling and partner selling. Jay, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think of the whole life cycle, not just the CRO, but the CMO. I mentioned 84% of the time are using partners every day at the end of the cookie. CX, everybody's selling subscription, consumption, and soon to be micro consumption. Winning a deal nowadays is winning the first 30 days with the customer. Now the fun starts. I need to upsell, cross-sell, enrich that every 30 days forever. We need a plan for that. And so when all business converts into this new model, that life cycle, every 30 days forever for customer for life, that's how Wall Street measures companies. That's how private equity measures companies, is customer for life, how sticky and how you can enrich them at 108%. You can't do that by winging it. You have to have a plan. And then the product folks. You're not going to win without the tech integrations, without being friendly with the thousands or tens of thousands of people around you in the 7-layer stack. So the CMO, the CRO, the CX leader, and the product leader, all of a sudden you're picking up more and more of the C-suite that want to meet with you on a daily basis to make sure they make their KPIs.
So we have time for this one more question, and I think it's a question that would help us to wrap up what we do. The question was, in a nutshell, what does successful channels do, and how can we get started with it?
So, partner sales automation, all aspects, all of those labor-intensive aspects of partner management, partner sales management is automated. 10 years ago, we started this company. We realized the most underserved area, the underserved technology areas, the partner sales manager, the channel sales manager. There are too many disconnected, manually driven business processes. So what we're doing is we're taking a best practice workflow automation tools to manage all aspects of partner planning and QBRs.
Wonderful. Listen, thank you all for attending. This has been a very lively session. Thank you for Jay and Gary. And now, when we close off, you'll be given a survey to respond to. For those of you who do respond to the survey, you'll get a complete set of the slide deck here. In the meanwhile, thank you and have a good rest of the day.